Welcome back. Yes, indeed, keeping our focus on the dethronement and banishment and appointment, as we have just discussed, of the former emir of Kano. But remember, his lawyers did speak about their next line of action. Let's have a listen to that.
We have not spoken to the emir since yesterday, but we understand that they're at their destination somewhere in a remote part of Nasarawa State after driving for nearly 7 hours yesterday night and arrived at their destination at 2 a.m. This morning. We understand the choice of the location to detain His Highness Mohammed Sanusi II was intended to cause maximum trauma and distress. This again is illegal and unconstitutional. According to instructions we received from the Emir through his Chief of Staff, we are directed to take legal action to challenge the legality of the Emir's detention and banishment. We have the firm view that this action is illegal and unconstitutional. Section 35 of the Constitution of our country guarantees every citizen the right to personal liberty. The basis of the denial of personal liberty are set out clearly in that section of the Constitution. None applies to the case of the emir. The archaic practice of banishment of deposed emirs, a colonial practice, has no basis under Nigerian law or the Constitution. We are totally perplexed at the resort to this practice in present-day Nigeria by its political leaders. The illegality of this practice was pronounced by the Nigerian Court of Appeal in the case of Attorney General of Kebbi State against His Royal Highness Al-Haji Al-Mustafa Jokolo and others. If by tomorrow morning no good news is received by us about his release, we'll then be approaching the courts appropriately.
So there you go, the lawyers speaking and giving the impression of what to do and the implication and what that meant. Now we do have Mr. Ibrahim Mukhtar, who is the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Kano State. He joins us from our studios in Kano. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning.
Let me start getting your quick impressions about the appointments of Mr. Sanusi by the Kaduna State government as the Vice Chair of Kadipa. How does the state see this?
You see, it is not a fight between Kano State government and Muhammad Sanusi, the deposed emir of Kano. Kano State government is happy with him if he gets anything beneficial or anything that will develop him or his family. It's not a vendetta. It's something that has to do with the office of the emir of Kano, which he occupied, and the Kano State government. Now, the role he played is not satisfactorily to the Kano State government. And that was why the government took that particular decision. Not Muhammad Sanusi as a person, and forever government will continue chasing him. No. We are happy if he gets anything, even more than that, even better than that. It's not a vendetta, actually.
So what is the point of banishment if he's going to be taking this job up in Kaduna, perhaps working from Kaduna, in Kaduna, with this particular job, meaning the banishment won't take effect? Is that what it means?
No, you know, you have to ask the employers, because they are the ones who employed him, and they are fully aware of the situation and the circumstances. So if they decided to employ him, they know the way they will work with him. So I am not in that position to say that, how he will work with Kaduna State government while under banishment.
As Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Kano, was it upon your advice that the state government decided to depose and banish him?
You see, this issue of banishment has been an old practice right from colonial period. Any emir within the northern part of the country who is removed will be taken out of his jurisdiction, probably in order not to have two emirs, two authorities, two different subordinates, and others may not even follow the incumbent emir in office. Now, in order to avoid such kind of possible friction and conflicts, now deposed emirs are taken out of that particular jurisdiction. It has happened to many emirs, including the Sultan, Dasuki, including Mustafa Jakolo, emir of Gandu. Dasuki was removed and banished to Kaduna State at that material time. Jakolo was also sent out of Kebbi State, Gwandu, his emirate, for some time. And so it has been a practice, and I believe the reason why they have been doing that is to maintain peace, security, and possibly the safety of even the deposed emir.
My apologies for butting in, but I understand you're trying to give us a picture and a background to what's happening. We do appreciate that. But I did ask, was it upon your advice, or was your advice unnecessary given the history of what has transpired? Did the state government act upon your advice?
No. You see, you have to get the point clear. If emir is removed, not only in Kano, as I said, but throughout the northern part of the country, that has been the practice.
Okay.
Now,
I hear you on that. Now, if that were the case, if they didn't act on your advice, what do you then think about what his lawyers did say, citing Section 35 of the Constitution, saying this country, people do have freedom of movement and association. The practice of banishing him is archaic, is no longer relevant in this time and age, given the laws of the country.
See, reading law only, the provisions of the Constitution under Section 35, is not enough. You have to know the facts completely and the circumstances. Now, whether that particular provision will apply or it will not apply, it depends on the facts, not just reading the constitutional provision. Now, if you look at it, the taking away the emir, the deposed emir, from his palace to another place outside Kano State was done by security operatives, police, DSS, and other security agents. Now, from my understanding, that was a security decision and a security action.
Okay, Mr. Mukhtar, are you saying that the law is a respecter of persons, and as such, Section 35 cannot and does not apply to him in this case?
No, that is not what I am saying. You know, you are applying law on facts and circumstances. What I am saying is, if it was a decision of the security, action of the security personnel and operatives who were there to another place, you must get a police report or a security report on why they decided to take that particular action to remove the emir from his palace outside Kano State. So for you to do justice to the matter, you must have a complete facts, not a disjointed facts. You know, not assumption, not something you don't have complete reports. So you need to have the reports from the security. You need to have everything, not only one-sided bashing. So you need to have the report, the justification. What of, for instance, if it is for the safety of the emir himself? What of if it is for the safety of the palace and his family? What of if it is for the benefit of the people of Kano, the security of Kano? Now,
let me just...
You can get it from the security report. Then you said, if, assuming there was a report that some people attempted to enter into the palace, unauthorized people attempted to enter until a tear gas was fired by the security police and they were dispersed. What was their intention? You get it? So you can never just jump into a conclusion that it is a breach of a constitutional right. It depends on the report, And everything.
If I could just ask pointedly,
that is what I'm saying.
If you can hear me, has he been banished from Kano State?
Yeah, of course, Emir is not in Kano. He has been taken out of Kano State.
No, the question is, has he been banished from Kano State?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So if you say he has been banished, I mean, where do you bring in, because this is 2020, and I recall you said this has been a practice. But I mean, in the nation's constitution, you see that people have a fundamental right to move freely without let or hindrance. So where do you put that banishment? I mean, what law provides for that? Chuck, can you hear me?
Okay, well, the thing about that, we'll try and get it back. I think we lost that for a moment, you know, so you heard him there saying, look, you have to look at certain other factors. But of course, it's not clear. Lawyers will always be divided on this kind of matter. They've talked about different circumstances, different things. Does this apply? So if maybe when he responds about whether or not he's been banished, what does banishment mean? Is he going to be confined to an area? If it is, how does Section 35 apply? Lawyers said, look, that applies expressly. So circumstances surrounding the matter or not, but you hear lawyers always have different views on these things.
Absolutely, and you wonder, because he says it was the security agencies that did this. So is it an order from the state government, or it was just at the instant of the security agencies? We need to
because the security agencies did not act alone. You know, the actions was predicated on something. The state government had announced his deposition.
I remember one of the things that we read, you know, as the counsel that was speaking earlier in that press conference having said was that when the security operatives came around, they said they are acting on specific instructions. Whose instructions? That one would expect that to be the instruction of the Kano state government, you know. But one other thing that I'll be very much interested in hearing from the Attorney General of Kano State is he quoted the Kebbi State example versus the Royal Highness Jakolo that was also deposed and sent to the same Nasarawa State. I wonder why it's always Nasarawa State. Anyway, so he cited that he said for some time because the court upturned that decision, and the man was definitely, you know, taken out of banishment at the time. So if that precedence is there, and he's Attorney General, I'm wondering whatever division that no matter how divided, you know, legal practitioners, just as you said, may be divided on this matter, there is a precedence, there is a judgment.
Yeah, but, you know, we did ask him as well, did the state government act on his advice? Did he even advise the state government? Was it necessary to advise the state government? I think he said no. And then he tried to explain why that was the case, maybe trying to say it's not a yes or no kind of answer, even though it was a pointed no. So it's a matter that is a little tricky. But honestly, then you also do remember that the deposed emir himself had, spoken, saying, well, his deposition was the will of God. But then the other part, then you had the lawyers also had that press conference saying, look, about his fundamental rights as a person, as a Nigerian, they want to challenge that.
Every reaction has pointed at that, you know, every reaction. I read that judgment of the Kebbi State government versus the deposed emir. Every judgment points to that it's basic, it's fundamental human right of an individual. One would say it's a no-brainer, you know. And I'm also wondering how come a colonial practice takes precedence over something.
So does that suggest that the laws then is superior to the Constitution?
I would very much want to ask him. In fact, that's the question I was waiting to ask him.
You will hear the lawyers say, you know, he's been subjected to maximum trauma and distress, and that's major. So there are different grounds, and I know that the end of this is not near at any point. But of course, we'll definitely like to get the Attorney General to clear the air, because a lot of Nigerians have questions, just to understand the thinking behind this. I mean, moving forward, because this will also be another precedent for something that might happen in future. So it'll be important to clear the air on this, such that we move forward with a clear, you know, perspective. We know where we're going from here.
And there are questions about the doctrine of lis pendis. So I think the Attorney General referred to some other cases
Yes, one of the cases he referred to is the Kebbi State government versus
okay, and then there's several reports too. He said factor in those other reports that emanated from Kano, which led to this particular matter. So how all of this? But his Sanusi's lawyer is saying they would have factored in all of these things. They would have, don't forget, former NBA president, they would have seen some of these provisions and will believe that they do have a case. But from the submissions of the Attorney General, it appears not.
They also have a case.
Of course. Well, you said it.
That's why they have lawyers, isn't it? And then the courts will then decide in terms of what is the position, what should the position be. But we'll keep trying to see if we could get him back. And then, he was trying to make a point concerning some of the issues that we had raised as well. So, yes, it will be good to hear him speak to those issues. For those who think, wait a minute, colonial practice, history, he started by giving us that background. So what does that then mean? Does that mean
even the
history,
context,
the rules,
the context, the context of the colonial practice that he referenced was that of the queen at the time. When the queen is, of course, the queen is a monarch, the emir is a monarch. You can't have two captains in a ship. That is the system at the time. I'm wondering how it fits into my thinking or into my head right now, where a government an emir that's appointed by a state government can ruffle shoulders with the person who appointed him.
I mean, you know what they say about influence. You might not be in that position of authority, but you can get so much influence that you will actually almost be equal to the person in authority.
Influence and authority, bros.
Almost the same. But let's be honest, people are saying this is largely political. But if we're going back to the colonial practice, people will say, how about we go back to pre-colonial practice when, you know, some of his emirs and kings actually had enough power and you can't just, you know, banish them anyhow. So it's going to be a long process. And if you take a look at the front pages this morning, you see Sanusi wants Lagos, but moved to, by the way, we got the pronunciation of those places is Loko and
okay.
Awe. Yeah.
Awe.
Are we?
All right, give it a shot. I think we'll have him back.
Okay, so let's connect to the Attorney General of Kano State, Ibrahim Mukhtar. He joins us from our Kano studio. Just before we lost connection earlier on, we're talking about how you place that banishment in the face of a law which gives everybody fundamental right, you know, to move freely without let or hindrance. That's been a big question for a lot of people. If you can hear me, I'll just go again. When we talk about the banishment, the exile, people are wondering, where do you place that in the law that gives people the fundamental right to move freely without let or hindrance? I mean, that's the law in the country. Okay, I guess we've lost connection yet again, but those are questions and they're still there. Definitely.
All right, so there you go. Who knows? I guess we'll keep trying that and take a look at some more issues on this matter in a moment.
Malam Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, born in July 1961, was nominated as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria by the then President Umar Musa Yar'Adua on June 1st, 2009. His appointment was confirmed by the Senate on the 3rd of June 2009 at the time the world witnessed a global financial crisis. As the CBN governor, Malam Sanusi brought about several reforms hinged on four major pillars: quality of bank, financial stability, healthy evolution, and contribution to a real economy. However, in 2014, it was suspended by the then President Goodluck Jonathan's administration after raising an alarm over a $20 billion NNPC scandal. Like a book with many chapters, a new page flipped for him as he was crowned Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II on the 9th of June 2014, the 14th Emir of Kano. His position as one of the most prominent traditional rulers in the country did not stop him from expressing his thoughts and views on various issues of national concerns, including girl child education in the north.
Imagine if you set up an SPV that would raise finance internationally and use that finance to just build girls' secondary schools across the north. We have to think out of the box.
Emir Sanusi II was also very vocal about the alarming rise in poverty rate, population of Almajiris on the streets of northern Nigeria, which was put at over 9.5 million people, an issue some considered too sensitive to discuss.
You can't be happy with millions of northern children out of school. You can't be happy with 9 states in the north contributing almost 50% of the entire malnutrition burden in the country. You can't be happy with all the issues, the Almajiri problem that we have.
On several other forums, he blamed northern leaders for the endemic poverty in the region, and he was never afraid to say it, irrespective of whose ox is gold.
The intensification of poverty at the time when we have an intensification of expropriation is amazing. The richest man in Africa is from Nigeria, and Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world.
Cases of insubordination to constituted authority, as well as an alleged financial misappropriation of over 3 billion naira, were levied against him by the state government. Another fresh charge of 2 billion naira for illegal land sales soon followed. In 2019, Governor Abdullahi Ganduje signed into law the creation of 4 new emirates, a move that watered down Sanusi's influence as the most prominent traditional ruler of the state. He was, however, appointed chairman of the Traditional Council and given an ultimatum to perform his role or face expulsion. Based on the recommendation of the Kano State Public Complaint and Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as the report of the Kano State Assembly Committee on the Emirate, Muhammadu Sanusi II was removed from office, just as his grandfather, Muhammadu Sanusi I, deposed in 1963 by Premier Ahmadu Bello.
Welcome back. It's our concluding moments now with Mr. Ibrahim Mukhtar, the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Kano State. Good to have you back. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so as we wind down on this one, so before his deposition and banishment, there had been cases that he had instituted before the courts against the government, even against the anti-corruption agency in the states, challenging some cases, quashing some of those other decisions. And these cases are extant and live within the court. So what happens to the doctrine of lis pendis? Because many think that the state government simply took laws into their hands, thereby violating that doctrine of lis pendis.
No, the state government has not taken any law into its hands. But let me explain to you clearly that the decision taken of removing the emir from his office is administrative, not based, and it doesn't touch on the issues pending before the court. All the issues pending before the court has nothing to do with the reasoning of the removal of the emir, the dethronement of the emir from his office. So it's not the case of lis pendis.
Is the anti-corruption agency who had come up with some allegations, are they going to proceed? Is the state government going to prosecute him if you say they're going to go ahead?
No, there is no decision on that actually. So I cannot preempt the position of the government. Whether investigation will be terminated or it will be continued, I cannot say as at now.
Yeah, because many think that, so what would be the point? The government has achieved part of what they wanted, so all of those cases might just be abandoned and dropped, and they think that that is what will play out.
No. Government removed the emir of Kano in good faith, not because the investigations were conducted, not because the government wanted to remove the emir. If that was the intention of the government would have removed the emir right from the word go. Government had the opportunity of doing that, but he was not removed. Litigation was going on. About 3 cases were filed, and government did not do anything. And some of the cases, one of the cases went in his favor, another one went in favor of the government. And there is one pending before the court that has to do with the Emirate Council. And let me tell you, the Emir himself as a person has not instituted any action against Kano State government in relation to his appointment as Emir of Kano, or any challenge or any fear of his removal. There is no such action pending before the court or decided by the court. All those actions were instituted by kingmakers of the Kano Emirate Council, and some elders, about 21 of them, filed another action before another court. And a member of the State House of Assembly also instituted another action. So it's not like that. Government acted in a very good phase, and not because government wanted to remove the emir.
And on a final note, I'd like you to give some clarity on the issue of banishment. And the question is, what does it mean in this context? How will it work in the light of the fundamental right to move freely without let or hindrance? So how will this banishment work in the face of the constitutional provisions?
You see, if you listen to the Secretary of the State Government when he was addressing the press on the issue of removal of the emir from office, there was nowhere where he said the emir was even banished from Kano State. So the decision of the Kano State Government was the emir was removed as at Monday, was removed from office, and a new emir was appointed. The issue of banishment was not part of the decision of Kano State Government. And that is why
he's been banished.
We have to, yeah, that is what we have been listening, hearing from media, that he has been banished. But what I know is he was taken away from Kano State, out of Kano State. That one I know. But the issue of banishment, actually, it was not part of the decision of Kano State Government. And you can go over the report read out by the SS.
So you're saying the government did not banish him?
Yeah, actually, there is no such statement, there is no such decision, to the best of my knowledge.
All right, then, Mr. Ibrahim Mukhtar, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Kano State, thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you.